On the eve of their anniversary, Evelyn was spotted holding hands with her male assistant as they walked into a hotel. I tried calling her, but it was my 13-year-old daughter, Luna, who answered. She coldly informed me that her mother was at a parent-teacher meeting and couldn't be disturbed by outsiders. Then, she hung up and blocked my number. That night, mother and daughter, claiming I was disrupting family harmony, used family law to lock me out on the balcony in the pouring rain to think about my mistakes all night. This time, I'd had enough. Shivering with fever, I placed the divorce papers in front of Evelyn, taking the initiative to ask for a divorce. In the bedroom, Evelyn didn't even raise an eyebrow at the mention of divorce. She was still intently applying nail polish. I waited for an hour, just as I was about to pass out. She finally sneered, "Leo, it was just a bit of cold wind. Are you really divorcing me over that? You were in the wrong, so you deserved it." I opened my mouth to explain, but resisted the urge. I forced a smile. "Just sign it," Evelyn said, nonchalantly. "I'll have custody of Luna. You don't have a problem with that, do you?" When I shook my head, she raised her perfectly sculpted eyebrow, surprised. But still, to show her so-called fairness, she called Luna into the bedroom and asked, "If your parents divorce, who do you want to live with?" Luna was undoubtedly Evelyn's daughter. Not only did she look like her, but the way she looked down on me was the same, haughty and dismissive. "My name is Liang, not Lu," Luna said. "Of course, I want to stay with Mom." Back then, I was concerned about how hard Evelyn had it giving birth, so when she suggested Luna take her surname, I agreed without hesitation. The old me would have lost sleep over my daughter's words. But after last night, my paternal love for Luna had completely evaporated. I didn't even bother to look at her. I turned and walked into the guest room to pack my things. In our 13 years of marriage, I had always been the one who took care of everything. All the daily chores, the food and clothes of these two ladies who never lifted a finger. I, who have always been frugal, found that I had so few personal belongings in this house that it took less than 10 minutes to pack everything. As I dragged my suitcase out of the guest room, Evelyn was watching TV on the sofa. Without turning her head, she asked, "Where are you going?" "I'll have the driver take you." "No need," I said. Fighting the dizziness from my fever, I made my way to the front door. Just then, a dodgeball came flying down from the second floor, hitting me hard on the back of my head. The second floor was Luna's game room. She always practiced indoor dodgeball after finishing her homework. As I clutched my head, collapsing on the floor and groaning in pain, Evelyn and Luna exchanged a knowing look. The old man's just acting again. They left me writhing on the floor for half an hour. Finally, drenched in cold sweat, I dragged myself out of the house and went to the hospital for a saline drip. After my fever subsided, I groggily boarded a bus to the outskirts of the city. 2 hours later, I arrived at my grandfather's house. My grandfather, overjoyed at my unexpected visit, didn't ask any questions. He just started a fire and steamed a pot full of taro rice for me. When Luna was younger, she loved taro rice like me. Sometimes, when she was too full, she'd cry and ask me to carry her. When she was about 6 or 7, a kid in their neighborhood told her that taro was trash for country folk. After that, Luna wouldn't let me bring taro home. I struggled, hitting my chest, as I hiccuped from eating too fast. My grandfather's face lit up with a wide smile. That night, I, who had suffered from insomnia for years, slept soundly. I knew then that I was finally home. 2 days later, I received a call from Evelyn. She asked, cold and arrogant, "Where did you hang the haute couture dress I bought abroad last year?" I instinctively told her the exact location and suggested she pair it with the necklace in the leftmost compartment of the storage box. I could hear the rustling of clothes on the other end of the line. A month later, on a Friday, Evelyn and I ran into each other on the school track. She was holding Sean's arm and looked me up and down, her eyes cold. Sean greeted me enthusiastically, "Leo, long time no see. Luna didn't mention you would be here." Luna was the president of the school's track club, so she was bound to have a competition today. However, I wasn't there for her. Ignoring Sean, I walked straight to the bleachers. Evelyn belatedly detached herself from Sean and stalked after me, saying sarcastically, "Leo, didn't you say you wanted to cut all ties with your daughter? What are you doing here, embarrassing yourself?" Too annoyed to argue, I said, "Please don't stand next to me. I don't want people to misunderstand us." "Misunderstand what?" "Misunderstand that we're still married." Evelyn paused, then her face turned pale. "Leo, I advise you to know when to stop." I didn't understand what she meant. At that moment, I was waving excitedly at Ethan, who was on the track. Luna was standing 5 meters away from Ethan, and I knew she saw me. She clearly thought I was waving at her. That was the only explanation for the look of disgust on her face. The starting pistol fired, and the men's and women's races began simultaneously. Ethan took off unexpectedly fast, and Luna, usually one of the fastest, fell halfway through the race. The moment the race ended, Evelyn and I raced to the track. Evelyn beat me by a few steps, going to Luna immediately and asking the school doctor about her injuries, but suddenly she held up her hand and asked him to wait, turning her gaze to me standing afar, scrolling through messages on my phone. "Leo, what are you still doing there? Can't you see your daughter is hurt?" Evelyn's reproach drew the attention of the crowd. Putting away my phone, I took a glance at Luna, whose lips had turned pale. Her knees were red and swollen, covered in blood. Her left ankle was twisted. At an unnatural angle, Luna had really taken a bad fall. She instinctively reached out to me, her lips trembling, a look of helplessness in her eyes. But what did that have to do with me? As Luna had written in her composition last year, she was all grown up. She no longer needed a useless, mediocre father who only cooked and did laundry and couldn't even play the saxophone, wasting his energy on meaningless things. Ignoring the wide-eyed Luna, I walked to the men's track, beaming as I fist-bumped Ethan. "Ethan, congratulations on getting the silver medal. Come on, your dad's waiting for us outside the gate. He said he'd take us out for a seafood feast to celebrate your victory." Walking out of the school, I sat in the car, and Evelyn called. I wasn't going to answer, but then she sent a text, discussing divorce matters. So when I arrived at the restaurant, I asked Ethan to go in first. I told him I'd be there soon. For the first time in over 2 months, I called Evelyn. The phone rang for only a half second, and Evelyn answered, her voice sounding a little impatient. "Leo, where are you?" "No matter where I am, you can tell me when you're free to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau." Evelyn was quiet for a moment, then her tone softened. "Can you come to the hospital first? Luna is badly injured. She might not be able to compete again. The doctor needs to talk to us." "Oh, if she can't compete, she can't compete. You don't have to tell me about this little thing." Evelyn couldn't believe her ears. "Leo, how could you say that? Are you even Luna's father?" I leaned back against the car seat, my voice calm. "Evelyn, it was you who called Luna into the bedroom. You were the one who asked her to tell me that she didn't want to live with me, a stranger to her family, after we divorced. Why are you acting like I'm the one abandoning our daughter? Don't you think you and your daughter are being ridiculous?" The other line was silent for a long time. Just when I thought that Evelyn had hung up to ignore me on purpose, she spoke again. In Evelyn's usually proud voice, there was a hint of defeat. "Leo, tell me what you want, and I'll agree. But in exchange, can you come to the hospital now and take care of Luna? You know how busy I am. I can't stay here and look after her." I chuckled softly. "I've only ever had one request, that we get our divorce done as soon as possible. As for Luna, as your ex-husband, I can only advise you to find a nurse as soon as possible." I must have hit a nerve, for I could hear the sound of things being swept off the table on the other end of the line, followed by Evelyn's angry scream. "Luna is your daughter. You've cared for her and watched her grow to this young lady. Leo, are you really going to divorce me? Are you really going to make our daughter a child from a broken family? Why not?" I reminded Evelyn that there was a man waiting for her all this time, a man who loved her deeply. Sean has always been concerned about Luna. You can say he is doing it out of love for you. Luna has always hoped that Sean would become her father. As her mother, you should help fulfill that wish of hers as soon as possible. Evelyn bit back. Are you really going to be okay hearing her calling another woman her mom? I answered without hesitation, 100 times yes. 3 years ago, Sean's family went bankrupt and he returned home, desperate and defeated. Evelyn, a celebrity, didn't care about what netizens were saying and hired Sean as her personal assistant. He helped her manage all the important matters in her company. Last Father's Day, Luna used up all her pocket money to buy Sean a Harley and often skipped school to have dinner and hang out with him. Actually, they were the real family. As for me, after facing the reality, I had to move on with my life. Evelyn was still rambling on about something. My stomach was growling. I really didn't want to waste any more time. I said impatiently, "If you're not free to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau next Monday, we'll see each other in court." Then I hung up, switched off my phone, and went into the restaurant. Monday came. Evelyn didn't show up, so I hired a lawyer, letting him handle the divorce completely. Half a month later, one weekend evening, wearing a straw hat, I looked at the sunset in the fields and gently patted the boy next to me, smiling. "Ethan, your grandfather must have finished cooking. Let's go home and eat." Ethan happily agreed and helped me carry 2 baskets of freshly picked fruits as we ran home, illuminated by the sunset. We were talking and laughing. When we reached the door, we were about to tell my grandfather about our day, but we realized that there was a visitor, Luna. My grandfather hadn't seen Luna in years, but every year, he would use his old phone, slowly writing down his message, asking me to send him the family photo. He knew exactly who Luna was. Some things I had never told him, but this old man who had lived alone for most of his life was very astute, with an understanding heart. Seeing my grandfather lead Ethan to wash fruits in the kitchen, he nodded, his back hunched as he went towards the kitchen. After expressing my true feelings, I stood up and went straight to the door, leaning against the door frame, telling Luna that she had to leave. "Don't ever come back here again. This house does not welcome unwanted guests." My words caused Luna's fingers to tremble. She clenched her fists, but stood her ground, refusing to leave. Seeing this, I went back to the living room, grabbing her hand with one and her luggage with the other, pulling her out of the house without any mercy. "Dad, wait, my leg hurts." Ignoring Luna's heart-wrenching cries, I pushed her out the door. As I tossed her luggage on her, Evelyn walked out from behind the banyan tree with a heavy expression. Her voice was trembling. "Leo, Luna has been having nightmares these past few days. She really misses you. She needs you. Can't you let her stay here for a few days?" I answered without a second thought, "No." At that moment, Luna saw Ethan peeking at us from the kitchen, pointing at him. Her voice was full of resentment. "Why can that outsider stay here, but I can't? I'm your real daughter." I glared at Luna, annoyed. "Who do you think you are, to compare yourself with my godson? Not only can Ethan stay here, he can stay as long as he wants. As for you, how many times do I have to repeat myself before you understand?" "Luna, let me tell you one last time." My tone was severe as I enunciated every word. "I don't want you anymore. From the moment you chose to follow your mother, you stopped being my daughter." Luna stared at me, dumbfounded. Luna, who has been so proud since she was 7, has never shed tears in public. Now, tears began to well up in her eyes. After a long moment, Evelyn helped her up. She asked, "Leo, you used to be so gentle. Why are you so cruel to our daughter?" My answer was to slam the door shut. That night, a storm raged. The lights flashed amid the thunder and rain. Yet Evelyn's red sports car was still parked along the muddy road behind the banyan tree. My grandfather held a flashlight and opened an oil paper umbrella to bring Luna some blankets, but I was quick enough to stop him and convince him to return to his room. The next morning, Evelyn, usually so aloof, anxiously knocked on the gate, begging me to go check on Luna. She said with teary eyes that Luna had a high fever in the middle of the night, was throwing up, and was very ill. My grandfather couldn't hear her knocks. I put on earplugs and went back to bed. When I woke up at noon, Evelyn's car was gone. I hummed a little tune and continued enjoying my time with Ethan at my grandfather's melon shed. When I sent the boy back to school, he was carrying a lot of fruits he had picked and happily shared them with his classmates. Seeing the way the city kids curiously chatted and whispered about the fruits, I smiled. Is this a blueberry? It's so big and sweet, much sweeter than the ones in the supermarket. Of course, my godfather used to be a PhD student in agricultural sciences. This kind of blueberry from North America can only be found at my great-grandfather's place. No one else has them. After hearing what Ethan said, one boy asked me, with admiration in his eyes, if he could join them the next time Ethan visited his grandfather's place. When I said yes, the class cheered. Leaving the classroom, I stood on the veranda bathed in the setting sun and looked up at the vast sky that I hadn't noticed for a long time. A PhD in agricultural sciences? I had forgotten when was the last time I had heard that title. 13 years ago, I was still a student who had not left the ivory tower. Going to class, doing research, and writing papers were my entire life. Until Evelyn, in order to force me to marry her as soon as possible, had a baby with me. I knelt down and proposed, and as Evelyn wished, I put the diamond ring on her finger. Everyone said that my family's ancestral grave was smoking. At first, Evelyn said that as long as our daughter was a little older, I could continue my studies and choose what I really wanted to do in agricultural research. But day after day, year after year, in the blink of an eye, Luna had already started elementary school. When I mentioned that I should go back to school, the Liang family said that Luna couldn't have a farmer for a father. Even Luna said, "Dad, Grandma said that marrying Mom is the biggest blessing in your life. Don't go looking for trouble and making the Liang family look bad." A sudden ring brought me back to reality. Seeing Evelyn's name on the screen, I calmly blocked her. I had already had my lawyer submit the divorce papers to the court. I had told Evelyn that she could talk to my lawyer about anything. She could pretend my words fell on deaf ears, but I could also block her number. A typhoon in September had collapsed the roof of my grandfather's old annex. Therefore, I discussed it with my grandfather, planning to rebuild the whole house. Before the reconstruction, some important things had to be packed and moved to the storage. So I opened the room where my parents used to live. My grandfather would come in from time to dust it, so there wasn't a lot of dust. After a while, I found Mr. Rabbit. As I turned around, ready to call my grandfather, a graceful figure appeared before me. "The toy you're holding seems so familiar." Hearing Evelyn's gentle voice, my smile faded. "Evelyn, do you have to force me to report you for trespassing before you finally disappear from my sight?" My harsh words caused her, always so aloof, to show an expression that I'd never seen before. Her fingers interlaced, she said, "Leo, I know you hate me right now, so you don't want to see me. But we were married for 13 years. I hope you will give me a chance to explain." I looked at her coldly. "There is nothing to explain between us." "Yes, there is." I had never seen Evelyn so flustered. She said, "That day in the hotel lobby, you saw me. You saw me and Sean going together. Why didn't you just ask me?" "Leo, if you had asked, you would know that Sean and I went to the hotel, only to meet a director who was staying there. If you still don't believe me, I can have the hotel security footage sent to you." As she said this, Evelyn actually took out her phone, ready to call the hotel staff. I looked at her, pale and helpless. "Don't touch my mother's things with your dirty hands." As I said this, I heard Sean gasp in surprise. The uninvited man was looking at Luna with heartache, and then turned to me accusingly. "Leo, are you insane? Just because Evelyn is divorcing you, are you going to treat her daughter like that?" I knew that Evelyn was right behind me. Sean was trying to start a fight. I lowered my head and burst out laughing. Even now, the white-faced boy was still being so self-righteous, trying to stir up trouble. I walked to Sean, hitting him in the face without saying a word. Sean fell to the ground, cursing at me. I kicked him between his legs. After a while, Sean managed to stand up, his face red as he threatened me. Evelyn told him to leave. Hearing her telling me not to get upset over such an insignificant person and to protect my health, Sean's face changed color rapidly. "Evelyn, are you crazy? I was the one who was beaten, not him." Evelyn coldly frowned. "I'm the one who fired you, not Leo. Besides, do you think your pathetic body can really fight my husband? If you don't have anything else, leave, or I'll have to call an ambulance for you." Sean stared at her in disbelief. "This jerk hit me and pushed your daughter. Are you blind, Evelyn?" Hearing this, Luna, pale and sweating, used the wall to get back on her feet. "It's not my father's fault. It was my own fault that I fell down." Hearing these words, Sean was beside himself with anger. Yet Evelyn's words were harsh, but realistic. After thinking it over, that useless Sean ran away cursing. After Sean left, Evelyn and Luna looked at me, their eyes expectant. I knew what they were thinking. They thought that without Sean, I would soften as usual, return to the family, and continue being a good husband and a good father. Just as I expected, after a few steps, I heard Evelyn's voice, acting spoiled and needy. "Leo, we drove here for 2 hours, and we haven't eaten anything. I don't really care, but my daughter needs to eat. Could you make us a bowl of noodles?" I thought for a moment, then said, "Wait outside the gate. I'll bring something." After that, I didn't walk towards the kitchen. I went to my room with Mr. Rabbit. I opened the first layer of the bookcase and took out a document. 2 minutes later, I handed it to Luna, along with a bag of bread. I told them, "I've talked to a lawyer. It's very difficult to formally break off a parent-child relationship in China, but that's okay. As long as Luna signs this contract, I no longer have any obligation to care for her in the future." Since I had chosen to abandon Luna, I would not let her be responsible for taking care of me in old age. This agreement was purely to protect her interests. But she started crying and knelt down, holding on to my pants, begging me to forgive her. "Dad, I don't want to cut ties with you. Without you, I'm a useless person. I can't live without you. Mom," sob, "please don't abandon me." Evelyn stared at me, her eyes hollow as if she was looking at a stranger. Luna begged for a long time, but I was unmoved. She turned to her mother, crying, "Mom, you said Dad was just being angry. You lied to me. Help me tell Dad that I was wrong, and I will be obedient in the future." Evelyn's shoulders shook. She turned away, covering her eyes with her hands. It took a while for her to compose herself and looked at me. "Leo?" I interrupted her coldly, "Take Luna home, and don't come back again." Then I closed the wooden gate on their faces. Back in the living room, my grandfather was sitting in a corner, mending Mr. Rabbit. I poured 2 glasses of tea, one for him, and the other for myself as I opened my laptop to get some work done. 5 months after the divorce, I went to pick Ethan from school because his father was working overtime. The moment Ethan got into the car, he started telling me about some big events that had happened at school recently. He said that last week, a girl named Luna, from the 9th grade, jumped off the 4th floor because she argued with her alcoholic mother. She was in the ICU. Because of this incident, the school organized a lecture on teen mental health, which took away some of his PE classes. After listening to the boy's innocent complaints, I said after a moment of silence, "Ethan, your parents might be a little hot-headed, but they mean well. Don't do something like that, girl. You have a long life ahead of you. Even if you make mistakes, as long as you have the courage to start over, you can overcome any challenge." Ethan chuckled, scratching his head. "Don't worry, Godfather. A real man knows when to yield. And I have you. If my parents want to hit me, I can just run to you in great-grandfather's house. You little guy, you know what it means to yield at such a young age. What do you want to eat? Let's go now." The neon lights flickered on both sides of the road. I steered the silver car smoothly into the traffic. The road has always been under my feet. If you have the will, you can always reach your destination. The end.